Okay, spoilers once again, and this will be more so a spoiler talk than an actual review. I'll still do my basic review stuff. There's your spoiler warning, but there's a lot to talk about here. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, Evan Peters. What? WandaVision episode 5 came out yesterday, and normally I review them on the Friday that they come out, but we had a new Foo Fighters album and Foo Fighters WandaVision. I don't know about you, but that's just my choice, but still, there is so much to talk about in this episode. Alright, so I watched this episode yesterday, obviously. I watched it on the Friday, I just didn't have time to, because I worked too. Anyway, but just going into it, I was like, okay, I know that they're going to do something great, and once again, Elizabeth Olson and Paul Bettany are so good in this show, and they had a fight near the end, which I'll talk about a bit later, but throughout the show, I really love the performances, especially Paul Bettany here, because he really catches on. One of the, I think this was the first shocker moment of the episode where Agnes walks in, and then they say a line, she goes, "Should I redo that?" Or should I say that line again? And when they said that, I was like, what? Wait, what? And then Vision is like, what did she say? And it's obviously a TV show. Oh yeah, I messed this up, I'm gonna say it again. And it kind of just stops. And then we have some incredible moments. There's an amazing scene at Vision's workplace where he's working on a Saturday, and that whole conversation with their kids is also pretty off-putting and great, but when he's actually at the work and they read that email, it's scary, and there's some hilarious old sitcom jokes with the email and electronic mail, or where do I send it, all that. But then when he touches, I think his name is Norm, when he touches his head and he snaps out of it and he's like, I have to call, I think my sister, I have to call all these people. It's like, what? So it really shows that Wanda has put these people in a trance, and it is crazy. And then throughout the episode, we kind of see him discovering more. We meet the dog, and the dog was fun, and then it's dead, but is it really? Because we never see the dog, and Agnes is being all weird and holding it, and there's some crazy theories. Again, when I watch a lot of Marvel stuff, weirdly, I don't always make theories on them. There are definitely some, especially more of the movies. Maybe it's just because it's oh, it's WandaVision, it's a show. I'm not really doing that, but still, there's some incredible theories out there which actually make sense. But then there's also some really cool things with Monica Rambeau when it was in this episode where they shoot her suit and it's bulletproof, and then they're like, what? And then they send the drone in, and when they send the drone in, I was like, no, don't shoot her and her kids. I don't know if I've said this before, but Wanda is my favorite female hero or female character in the MCU, and I'm I know that you're bad, basically. Look at what she's doing, but she's just so awesome. I've loved her ever since Age of Ultron. Civil War is possibly my favorite MCU movie. But then one of the most shocking scenes is when, this took me totally by surprise, Wanda comes kind of out of that whole, the force field, the little town they're in. She comes out of it and talks to them, and I was just what? She's got her suit on, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so bad. Bad as in oh, what's gonna happen? But this is so awesome. And then she turns the guns on everyone. That's she carries the drone out, but then she turns the guns on that leader guy who's kind of a little bit suspicious. He's oh yeah, take the shot. What? No. It's weird. As I said, all the acting here is really good, and the suspense, and then probably the most talked about scene, basically that leads into one. I'll talk about it all in one. The whole ending is just crazy. It's easily the best that it's been. This is by far my favorite episode of the show, because Vision starts to catch on. He starts to catch on, and then he kind of confronts Wanda about it finally, because there's some weird stuff, with Agnes, with the whole, should I read the line again? Then the dog, then at the work. So he really is catching on. Then he's like, you can't control me. This is where Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are just incredible. He's like, you can't control me like you control all them, because he figures out, he can actually, he has the power to stop them when he did that thing to Norm. He learned that, hey, I can actually stop this. It's gonna take a lot. But then they start fighting, and then she's like, oh, can't I? And starts rolling the credits of the show, but they keep talking, and they keep talking and talking and talking, and then it kind of stops, and then they both fly up in the air. And it kind of reminded me of that scene in What We Do in the Shadows, which I found that really funny. But it was so intense. All jokes aside, the scene was actually super intense. They go up, they start yelling, and then they finally go down. And actually, I need to talk about the kids, but I'll talk about those before I talk about what everyone is talking about. It's really weird with the kids. When they first showed up, I was like, oh, okay, they're kind of annoying, but like they're like basic 80s kids, because it's like an 80s episode, I'm pretty sure, like kind of like Family Ties. And then they learn that they can just age whenever they want. So like, you can't have the dog till you're 10. Now they're 10. So it's funny they do that. But then just to talk about the ending. Oh my god. So they hear a doorbell, and then she's like, this wasn't me. And then Vision's like, I want to believe that it wasn't you, but I don't know at this point. They open the door. Evan fucking Peters. Oh my god. Seeing him kind of open the door, and he's like, hey. And then they're like, did she recast Pietro? And when I was watching that, I was like, oh my god, Quicksilver, like X-Men Quicksilver. And it shocked me, and for some reason I felt like he was going to show up though. After the show started getting more weird, I was like, I feel like he might show up instead. And maybe there's a whole trick, like there were theories that he might be like Agnes's husband. That's how he's been in that whole place, because Wanda, when she came out, she set the whole kind of, I also call it like a force field thing, like the dome thing, like the Simpsons movie, like all red, so you know people couldn't really get in it. So obviously he had to be in it for a bit, but it was like, how? But when he showed up, I was like, no way, this is awesome. And seeing him there, and then the episode ends, and like they have a few lines of dialogue, I don't remember them exactly, but he says something about her brother, and obviously they had talked about Pietro, and yeah, I mean, he's Quicksilver, and her brother in the MCU is Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver, so it's kind of different. And I know that there's some, like there's slightly different characters, I don't know too much about that, but I feel like there's some setup there where they're almost tricking Wanda, like it's kind of almost backfiring on her. But seeing that blew my mind, and just that alone, like that whole ending scene, from like the fight with them flying in the air to that whole doorbell thing, like it blew me away. This is by far my favorite episode of the show. WandaVision episode 5 blew my mind. I absolutely love this episode. I loved basically everything about it. I think because of all the off-putting moments, it really made this one special. The show just keeps building and building and building. They're really good at cliffhangering us, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next week. I'm going to give WandaVision episode 5 a 4.5 out of 5. I know this video is actually different from normal. Like normally my reviews actually just, I think I've said this before, but normally I write out my reviews and I say most of what I have and I add a few things. This time there's nothing, like I was just going, so maybe that's why I kind of rambled on a bit. But this is also, I just had to talk spoilers. I couldn't not talk about spoilers. That's probably how it's going to be from this point out, just because there's so much here. And this Friday, I think, I'm not 100% sure, I think I'm going on the Talking TV podcast to talk about the next episode of WandaVision. It's the Halloween episode. I've heard that it's going to be crazy. I'm really excited. What did you think of this episode? Tell me in the comments down below. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.